On behalf of the Eastern Transportation Coalition, we'd like to welcome you today to the RITIS workshop on creating an effective after-action report. We're going to just start with a couple housekeeping slides and then get right into the workshop. We will be using Zoom webinar today. You can connect your audio either through your computer or through your phone. And this web meeting is being recorded and will be made available to participants. If you have questions about the web or audio, please reach out to Esther Cleet at kmjinc.com. Please note the chat box is not available. We will be using the Q&A box for questions today. So any questions that you have for our presenters today, please feel free to add them into the Q&A box, and that will be monitored and they will be answered during the workshop. If we don't get to any of the questions, they will be they will be answered by the presenters in a follow-up document. At this point, I'd like to turn it over to Denise Marco. She is the TSMO Program Director for the Eastern Transportation Coalition. Denise?
Thanks, Joanna. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Hi, welcome everyone. It should be an exciting workshop. I'm excited to see what Rick Ayers has cooked up for us, but thanks for joining. I'm looking forward to a good day today. Next slide, Joanna. So we've got quite a few registered, 21 states, and as you can see below, some of you have seen this slide before. There's DOTs, turnpike authorities, MPOs, federal agencies, universities, vendors, and consultants. So there's always a great mix of folks that are attending a lot of these learning sessions. So thanks for joining. Next slide, Joanna. Typically and traditionally, what we typically do is provide you with a coalition update before we dive into the subject matter for the workshop. Recently, we've had some vendor forums highlighting our data sets from our transportation data marketplace. The Waypoint, Origin, Destination, and vendor forums were held in August and September. The HOGS exchanges, what HOGS means is Highway Operation Groups. So we are focused on incident management in those. They're in-person exchanges. We held one in the Potomac region for Virginia, DC, and Maryland, and then we held one in Philadelphia for the Delaware, Pennsylvania, New Jersey region, talking about incident management and ways to improve training scenarios with folks, incident responders, police and fire. And then just yesterday or the day before, I'm losing track of time, probably yesterday, November 10th, 9th, we had an automated traffic signal performance measures webinar. It was a great webinar, well attended, a lot of good stuff on signals. Many of these things are available on our web if you're looking for slides or some information. So go there for more information. Our upcoming meetings, we have a RITIS Enhancement Working Group meeting. It's a member-only agency meeting. It's scheduled for December 1st. It's designed for some of the folks that look at how we can improve development of the RITIS platform. Southern HOGS Exchange, very similar to the ones above. Again, it's an in-person, going to be held in North Carolina. We're actually going to visit the Traffic Incident Management or TIM track that they have. So there's a lot of folks that are excited about attending that. We have an NHTS Next Gen webinar that's being scheduled for January 26th. Our next RITIS user group meetings in February, and then we're looking at putting together 2 vendor forums on for analytic platforms, things like Esri, RITIS, Ayers. Some of those folks will be on that vendor forum. So that's coming in February. So a lot going on as usual. This slide talks about the transportation data marketplace. For those of you that are not familiar with it, it's a marketplace of 6 different types of data sets. We've got travel time, speed, volume, conflation, OD, waypoint, and freight. 6 data sets, 12 different vendors. A lot of that information is also on the web. But if you're a member of the coalition, you're able to procure these data sets through UMD, through an MOU process. No RFP, competitive bid issues needed. And then lastly, we have a new automated data use agreement process. The data use agreement on the marketplace allows you to share vertically with your MPOs, with your cities, or to share your data across state lines. New Jersey shares data with Pennsylvania. New Jersey shares data with New York, things like that. So check out the TDM if please feel free to email me if you need more information as well. Next slide. So with that being said, I'm going to introduce both of the speakers at once, and then I'm going to let them take over. We've got on the left, we have Rick Ayers. He is our public sector advocate for the CATT Lab. He's got about 30 years of experience working with location-based kind of enterprise software systems. He's worked at both the federal, the state, and the local levels. And in his current role right now with CATT Lab, he serves to support state and local transportation agencies. So Rick, don't shoot me, but when you have a question, he's the guy to go to many times with the RITIS platform and how it works. He's worked extensively with EPC, with us and our member agencies, and all the other federal and state stuff. So welcome. He's going to run this workshop, and we're very happy to have him and thankful we have him as an advocate for us. And then on the right, we've got John Allen. He is basically assists in user experience and user interface development. So he's many times the face behind some of the graphics that you see. He manages a lot of the special projects, and he develops strategic direction for RITIS and the Pro Data Analytics Suite, which I think is one of his fortes. He's also a facilitator for a number of our different organizations, including partners in using archived operations data. With that being said, these are going to be your two co-hosts. I'm going to turn it over to John. He's going to set the stage. Take it away, John.
Okay, thanks, Denise. Let me just set my show up here real quick and welcome everyone. I think you're really going to be happy with this webinar today. Rick does a terrific job in training and has some very interesting things to talk about today, informative, and just a minute. There we go. About putting together an after-action review performance report. But before we get into all that, we just wanted to run a couple of polls real quick. So if the first one is, are you familiar at all with the RITIS reports template webpage? We'll give everybody about 10 seconds to check yes or no here. Okay, Esther, I think we can close that now. And about half and half, that's interesting. So, you know, for those folks who are aware of the templates, hopefully have some good things to share with us later in the Q&A or follow up with us at the CATT Lab. And for those who don't know the templates, welcome. And I think this is going to be really informative for you to learn about the RITIS templates, especially after action review. So let's move on to the second poll now. And how did you learn about the templates? You can select all that apply here. RITIS quarterly meetings, a meeting at the Eastern Transportation Coalition from a colleague internally, you're not familiar, or other, and need to describe a little below. Perhaps you saw them at a conference or you were at a meeting at another agency and you saw the use of the template. So just take a moment to fill those out. Maybe about 20 seconds there. Okay. I think we can close that up soon, Esther. Okay, so kind of a half and half between the quarterly RITIS group meetings and you're not familiar with the templates. Okay. So let's move on. I'm here to set up the stage for Rick's training session today about why we're here. So obviously you guys want to learn about how to create some professional, informative performance reports that are understandable. And I wanted to emphasize understandable because from this poll we did at another RITIS workshop, you can see that most of the reports that are done for different audiences are considered decision makers. So 62% of those folks are decision makers who you're making the reports for. So you want them to be understandable, clear, concise, not a lot of technical jargon, not a lot of complex graphics or charts. And we take that to heart and we develop a series of templates. This is just one example of the many templates that are out there for after action review, as well as the other categories we have, but we try to give it a clean infographic look, some logical groupings of information, and soundbite summary text, something that a decision maker can look at, because two things with them, they'll say, what's the bottom line, and tell it to me in 30 seconds. So up top here, you have a very brief timeline summary of this particular incident that occurred in Massachusetts of a truck bridge strike. Over to the left, some visuals about the truck striking the bridge, the state police arriving. There was some non-life-threatening injuries, and then the traffic back up there. So something really easy to understand, visually compelling. And then to the right, you have several summaries of the performance of the impacts of the network. Really easy to understand, not a lot of complication there. The one trend map is nice because it's hyperlinked, so you can show this in live or animation to folks and show the impacts of the network over time during that incident. So we think this is pretty compelling and useful to you all. We've had a lot of great feedback on the different templates for all these different categories. Now, today, Rick's going to walk us through a number of things, starting with the tools and the resources that are available to use and create these reports. Then he's going to walk through an example of building an after-action report and show you exactly how it's done. And then finally, if you guys have any questions about it, feel free to ask away in the Q&A session, as well as afterwards. If you think of something and you know what, I think we'd really like to have this feature or this particular analysis in that report, just give a call afterwards and tell us about it, and we'll work with it and make that happen. Or if you want other reporting, for example, some agencies reached out to me to do a TISMA report. Maybe that's something you would be interested in doing, or there's some other area that you need help on. We're willing to do that for you. And for the CATT Lab, we're here to gather intel about your performance needs and experience, so we can improve those 3 T's: the tools, the templates, and the trainings. And how do we do that? Well, we run these workshops, get a lot of good information from the Q&A, and we're going to do some more polls later on to drill down a little bit and find out more about your needs and wants, and how you feel about the templates, so we can continually improve those. And all this is to make your jobs faster, better, more cost effectively, and developing smarter, more informative performance reporting. That's our bottom line. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Rick. Ricker.
Fabulous, John. Thanks. Thanks very much. I'm going to move over to my slide deck. Good day to everyone. Super excited to be here. As always, appreciate the Eastern Transportation Coalition and them hosting this workshop, number 3 of multiple workshops that we've hosted, and hopefully not the last. Today we're really focused, as John had established. My role today with you is to walk through a series of new templates, report templates that the CATT Lab is making available to RITIS, the RITIS user community. Part of the suite of new template reports, as John had indicated, are designed to help tell your story. Yet, when you take a look at some of these report templates, you might think that, well, there's a lot of data, a lot of information in here. Hey, RITIS, CATT Lab, where do I go to get these metrics? How did you produce this particular graphic with respect to the report template? So we're going to walk through a specific after action report template, and John had kind of teed that up, a very specific report template. And I'm going to take a use case from one of our users out on the West Coast, Oregon DOT, and I'm going to illustrate, walk you through how to update, how to build out these executive summary reports for your own purposes. We're going to be using a multitude of probe data analytics tools throughout today's workshop: trend maps, performance charts, user delay costs, Causes of congestion, a new tool from the CATT Lab. And then along the way, we want to push out a couple of additional polling questions that again help better understand your needs, your interests, and how we can evolve and improve our tools and delivery of said platform, the RITIS platform, to yourselves. You know, the templates were rolled out largely as a result of 20 years of the CATT Lab building out capabilities, you know, integrating your authoritative data from the state DOT on crashes, incidents, work zones, and so forth. You know, CATT Lab through the RITIS platform, bringing out some very specific capabilities so that you can answer questions about that data. We understand, however, that you, part of the organization, are an important part of this Venn diagram. And what I think characterizes, best represents why we've built these templates is kind of bring and fuse all of this together. Again, help you tell your story in a very concise, informative, and meaningful way. A number of different use cases that we have kind of built out some of these report templates around, whether it's project prioritization, federal reporting, work zone impacts. Today's report templates and use cases is after action incident review. Interestingly though, most of the report template, the after action report templates that you'll see, they're all around like an incident, crash. So I took a little bit different spin with it, just to kind of help you kind of broaden your perspective of how an after action report template could be used. You know, the way we've worked to organize all of these templates and the resources that these template resources that we've made available to you, super simple. You know, you determine the use case from the website, you run the various RITIS tools, probe data analytics or otherwise, to generate the metrics and the visualizations that get integrated into the report template. And then, you know, you populate the report template, you summarize that in the template itself. So it's a multi-step process. Along the way, though, as we've built out these template resources, my friend John has done a phenomenal job at that's the specific report template we're going to use today. John's done a phenomenal job at building out these step-by-step workflows for how you, once you download the report template, step-by-step, here's what you do. Here's what tools to use. Here's which tools to use to populate the metrics for this aspect of the report. So lots of detailed information, making your job that much easier to report insights, data-driven insights, to leadership, the general public, or elected officials within your respective organization. So I'm going to push out a couple of polling questions. The first of a couple here: have you used and shared any of the report template? So only about half of you, it looks like, have actually used or know that these report template resources exist. So for those of you who've used report templates, how have you used them within your organization, with senior leadership, with the public, with elected officials, or not at all? Those of you who have not used them, we expect it's not at all. This is a multiple choice, so take some time and fill this out. Sometimes the results of these polls help us kind of tune some of the additional report templates that we make available through the templates resource page. Wait a few moments before we close that poll and look at the results. Esther?
I think we're ready to close the poll.
All righty. And survey says, okay, so a lot of you are pretty new in terms of your implementation of these report templates. That's okay. today you're going to learn how to build out an after action report template, and hopefully some of those additional options or uses for report templates grows over time, but we'll get you there. So thank you, Esther. You know what? Given the results of the last poll, this one should be easy. Let's go ahead and see the poll. Just bang this out. Have the templates made a positive difference in the presentation of mobility data for your agency? You know, there's only about a handful of you that have actually leveraged some of these report templates. The rest of you, it's going to be a no, but just some general feedback on how the impact that these report templates has had for your organization. Let's go ahead and close that one, Esther, and let's move on. All right, so good feedback. Thank you very much for that. We'll close that poll and let's move on. So today, again, focused on after action review. If you already have credentials, RITIS credentials, access to probe data analytics, what I'm going to be sharing with you is so new that you're not going to be able to, you're not even going to see it on our report templates website. We're kind of right at the edge of getting what I'm sharing with you released. But we thought that this would be some excitement, provide some energy for you to jump onto the templates website here in the next few days to take advantage of downloading some of these templates, in particular the after action review templates, and jumping into them. If you're a probe data analytics user, you can access any of the report templates at the bottom of the list of PDA tools when you log into probe data analytics. So there's a couple of different ways to get to the report templates. I thought I put a URL here, but I did not. This is a public facing website to navigate to, and you can access all of the report templates here, or navigate to that same page by clicking that fat button on the PDA page. What we're going to see, I'm going to go ahead and move on, is that from the after action report templates site, there's like 5 or 6 report templates that we're going to make available to you again here in the next few days. Might be a couple of weeks before we officially launch this. But the one report template that I'm going to use today in building out and helping you work through how to populate and insert metrics, how they're derived, and to create one of these visually compelling information products is the Mass DOT after accident, after crash report. This is the use case that I'm applying based on this template. So when you go to download the template, this is what you're going to see. Well, I took this template from Mass DOT and I built out something specific to a use case from discussions with Oregon DOT and some professional development training that I did for them not too long ago. Notice there's a number of different elements in here. And as I move over to my web browser, we'll see how to build this out. Now, what's really fun about these workshops and to building out these report templates is it gives you an opportunity to leverage and touch a whole host of different probe data analytics tools. So every single one of these tools that has a yellow box around it is actually used to generate data elements, data visualizations, and metrics in this report. So super cool way to kind of touch on a number of different tools to kind of build out a very, very rich, compelling, and easy to use report for leadership and decision makers. So the scenario here is not crash related. It's work zone related. So in short, there is a section of I-84 in Oregon and around Portland that was shut down for a short period of time, a long weekend. They shut down portions of I-84 east and westbound, so that they can install a bridge for a transit system that's in the Portland area. During this activity, there was a report back to Oregon DOT. There was some issue early in the morning. Freight truck activity was, they're having some serious challenges above and beyond the expected communication of delays as a result of this work zone. Super early in the morning. So we said, hey, you know what, instead of a crash related use case, let's take our after action report and build something out that's specific to a work zone closure. It's planned, and so this is what we're going to build out. Again, we're going to use a number of different tools from Probe Data Analytics, and with that, I'm going to jump out of my PowerPoint and move over to my browser. Just going to do a quick check. I got a green box. Esther, can you see my browser?
Yes, I can see your browser.
Fabulous. All right, so again, just as a recap, if you go to the, I'm gonna move this down here. If you go to the report templates web page, today, this is what it looks like. Tomorrow, not tomorrow. Don't take my word. Very soon, it's going to look like this. So you're going to have another fat button here on a reports templates website. And when you click that button, you're going to get a list of report templates. As I indicated, there's about 5 of them. And then all this cool kind of step-by-step workflow and insights on how to build out this particular MATOC after action report. Yet today, I'm going to focus on this template. So when you go to revisit the after action report templates website, you go, oh, what was that template that Rick was working with? It's the Mass DOT truck bridge strike template. That's the 4th one down in this list. When you download that bad boy, this is what it looks like. But again, I took this standard template. All these templates are just PowerPoint documents. And they've been configured in such a way that you can easily go in and update various different elements specific to your use case. So that's what we're going to walk through next, is what I did to kind of build out this one-page executive summary of the TriMet Better Red Improvement I-84 closure, where they installed an overhead bridge or some sort of overpass. I think it was a pedestrian overpass. But notice as I review this PDF document, I created this in PowerPoint first, and then I saved it out as a PDF document because that's likely how you're going to be sharing the final product yourself. There's various different, John kind of mentioned this, right? As I hover over, notice how my cursor changes as I hover over different elements of my after action report. I've got links here. Notice how my cursor changes to a hand. What I've done for all of these different metrics that I put into this particular report, even these causes of congestion, they are linking back to the original or the output information product report from Probe Data Analytics. And I'll get into that in more detail as we move along in building out this report template. So let's just start at the top and work our way down. We'll talk through several of the elements that go into this report template, and then dive into the specifics on what I did to generate the data visualizations as well as the metrics. So some of the stuff, some of the elements at the top of this report are pretty straightforward, right? When you download that report template, you're essentially just putting in your after action event, whether that's an accident or some work zone. Maybe it's a natural weather event that you're doing just want to generate a single page executive summary report for. Just update those elements. There's nothing fancy about it. When you download this PowerPoint template, you'll see that these clocks are configurable. We've provided a number of different icons and symbology that you can leverage in these. All of this is configurable. Here, notice that I've got a couple of hyperlinks for the eastbound and westbound lanes for I-84 that were closed. That hyperlink, interestingly, connects to, what is this? Well, if you are a full enterprise RITIS user and we're ingesting your crash data, work zone data, you have access to what's called a incident timeline. So even if you're looking at Waze data, Waze data events have incident timelines as well. So you pull it when we pull in your incident data, whether it's a crash or work zone, we're documenting when that work zone or crash started, when it ended, what lanes were closed, and congestion and activity along the way. So that's kind of a cool way to, okay, well, east and westbound lanes were closed. What were some of the details to this long weekend closure that might bring some additional insights to the complaint that we received from a local freight trucking company? This is just an inset map, nothing fancy here. I actually grabbed that inset map from the project website. Actually, this is a media publication talking about, the fact that I-84 was going to be closing. So I just grabbed that image and I brought that into my map. I added a couple of additional pieces to really highlight that this is I-84, the work zone is right here, so on and so forth. Let's dive into the meat of this. I'm going to start with this trend map. If you're a Pro Data Analytics user, you should be familiar with trend maps. Trend maps are a spatial animation of congestion over some period of time. It's historic in nature, right? You're going back into the archive and you're looking at conditions, various different performance measures, whether it's comparative speed, whether it's travel time, maybe it's just speed in general. But you want to look at conditions during the time of the event relative to normal conditions. So in my case, I'm building out this and creating this visualization for this executive summary. I wanted to look at 2 weekends prior to the closure and 1 weekend after to really help from a regional perspective, tell the story of the broader impact that the work zone had, not on just I-84, but other arterials that were connected or are intermingled or connected in some way to I-84. So let's take a look at that. So trend map. Again, most of you are probably familiar with how to generate a trend map. Oh man, I had this all queued up. It took it away. All right. So in my case, I want to look at a regional perspective of the impact that that I-84 closure had. And so, I just kind of zoomed into the area of interest, said, you know what, here's where that closure was. I used my map selection tools, handy dandy map selection tools, lots of different ways to select roads within Pro Data Analytics. Remember, in Pro Data Analytics, every query has 2 elements, a spatial parameter and a temporal parameter. The way in which to identify the spatial parameter, number of different tools, road name, kind of look at very specific geographies. A lot of folks like this spatial selection or the map-based tools. So that's what we're doing here. So I'm just going in, looking at XD road segments, saying, hey, yeah, that's cool. Look, that's a good regional perspective. That's what I'm gonna look at. Now, remember, going back to the trend map that I generated and the visualization that I put in this report, there's 4 different maps. Well, Rick, how did you do that? That's so cool. Well, I built out 4 different time periods. Now, remember that the event, the work zone, took place over the weekend of September 23rd to the 26th. But I wanted to analyze that relative to a couple of weekends prior to, just for demonstration purposes. I'm going to just do one before and after. So notice here, I've got the weekend of the event, I've got the weekend before the event or the work zone closure, and the weekend after the closure. Always make sure you select the appropriate data source, just confirm the data source. Trend maps, again, because they're an animation of that time period or those days, if you will, over a 24-hour period. You can choose to animate that trend map in 15-minute increments, 10-minute increments, 1-hour increments, 5-minute increments. Once you submit that, this is the result. Of course, this happens. I had the results all queued up before we got started, but just the nature of the beast. Now then, I was having some issues earlier. But let's, just for discussion's sake, we can see that this is the actual day of the work zone or the closure. I've got some issues here on my end with regard to rendering, the laptop specific, but this is the results of the trend map for my report. All I did is I took a screen grab of this and I just dumped it into my report. Now, the other thing that I did, though, see that here, I incorporated a link to view the animation, but I also took the entire graphic and made it a hyperlink, such that when you go to click either one of those, either the text, click here, or the actual graphic, it opens that trend map up. Now, for some of you who are familiar with Probe Data Analytics and have had me do some training for you, you know that one of my favorite aspects of the trend map that you could employ for your report or not is that there is an option to share your trend map publicly. Notice in the upper right-hand corner of the trend map window, there's this share button. One cool option, if you wanted to, back in this report, for anyone who happened to click this that may not have access to RITIS credentials, let's just say you wanted management to be able to open it. Management doesn't have RITIS credentials. You go to your trend map, you click that share button and say create embed code. There's a way to pull out a unique URL from this embed code and embed that as a link to that particular text. So great way to expose and make available to anyone outside of the RITIS user community this nice data visualization or animation of regional impacts of congestion during the time that that I-84 was actually closed down. All right, so that's the trend map. Notice in the upper right-hand corner of this element, there's this kind of insights about speed reduction. Well, but in particular, we integrated a specific time because that's when the call came in. It was early in the morning. This freight truck was running through the area, particularly extended period of time to move through the work zone. And so the individual that generated or populated this report wanted some specific insights about speed reduction at that particular time of the closure relative to other periods of time. So where am I getting the speed reduction? Well, because I'm looking at specific times of the day and because I generally like to report on the 75th percentile of data values for speed. In this particular case, it is for speed. I'm going to use the performance charts tool. So if you remember in Pro Data Analytics, you can initiate running a performance chart. Here, this is the setup. Because I'm interested in performance measures relative to that work zone, not the entire region, it's very specific about the road segments that I wanted to do my analysis on. So I went out and I used road name as my search criteria, spatial parameter. And I kind of cut off I-84 goes pretty much across the entire state of Oregon. So I kind of broke it down to just these segments. You see them here. If I wanted to, I can pull out more segments from the input query. And then again, like I set up for the trend map, I defined several date ranges that I wanted to look at. The weekend of the closure, 2 weekends prior, 1 weekend after, identified my data source and the level of granularity for the performance charts themselves. The output of that looks a little bit like this. Well, that particular query looks exactly like this. Give this a moment. Ah, that was quick. So after you run a performance chart, particularly, well, by default, it's gonna, what's displayed in the chart is speed for the period of time that you analyze. Now within the performance chart output, you've got different performance measures that you can look at. While we're interested in speed for that metric in the upper right-hand corner, the performance charts are a great way to look at a number of different performance measures, whether it's comparative speed, whether it's travel time, you name it, you got a whole boatload of different performance measures that you can look at. But per my note earlier, what's great about the performance chart is that you can look at specific times, but you can also look at extreme values during that range of dates that you queried. Rick, what do you mean by that? Well, extreme values. What was the 5th and 95th percentile value? Notice as you know what, I'm just going to turn all of these off for right now, just for discussion's sake. As I hover over or lock, single click and lock my pop-up, notice that not only do I get a value for speed for, what is that, 5:15 a.m., but I also am getting the far extremes in terms of the 5th and 95th percentile ranges, as well as the 25th and 75th percentile ranges. So great insights, right? And a lot of times we want 75th percentile because it's not the average, it's not the extreme high, it's not the extreme low, it's kind of in between. So let's take a look at that. I'm going to turn on the values for the weekend before and the weekend after. in my legend here, I'm going to also turn off the 5th and 95th percentile for all of those dates. Now then, at 2:30 a.m., as I hover my mouse over my chart, I'm just going to single click. That's going to lock the pop-up. For our after action report, we want to report the speed variation, what that increase was. I noticed we've got three different ranges. For the 75th percentile for the weekend before and the weekend after, eastbound. This chart represents eastbound. This one represents westbound because I just wanted east and westbound traffic. We got anywhere from basically 65, but 65 down to 63, slightly different for the westbound traffic, 63 to 60. So in terms of kind of moving through the development of just that metric for that particular time of day, I kind of lock in on the day of the time of the day on that chart. I look at the non-work zone performance measures, and I just do a percent difference. So I said, you know what? If it's normally about this speed, but during the work zone time period, I'm going to get some clear insights as to the percent change. Now notice, even in the shady areas of this performance chart, you can see that even the 25th percentile values for travel time is really distinct. You know, super early in the morning, you can see that 75th percentile values were super high. Even during the day, big difference between the day of the weekend of the closure relative to normal conditions. So again, performance charts are great for kind of interrogating time-specific insights to what was going on during the event, whether that event is a crash, work zone, or weather-related event. And that's where we get that data element. We got about 10 more minutes, or no, 25 more minutes. Let's move on to the next metric in this report is increase in travel time. Basic number here, 19% was the increase in travel time throughout that weekend, right? I know I can get travel time insights. You just showed me travel time right there in performance charts. Well, so are you going to use that? How do you add all that up? How did you do that? Well, I didn't have to, because there's this really awesome tool in Probe Data Analytics that summarizes that for the entire period that you're interested in. It's called performance summaries. That's this bad boy right here. So for the performance summary, to get that travel time metric in the report, I use the same road segments, use the same dates, but this is a cool feature. I was very specific about the time period that I wanted to analyze, because you know that phone call complaint came in early in the morning. So I said, you know what? I don't want the entire day. Notice this is a slider bar. Now, come on, slider bar. This slider bar allows me to be very, very specific about configuring the temporal aspect of my query. So I set that up and ran my report. And voila, this is the output of my performance summary. Now there's a lot going on here. If you've not run performance summaries in the past, keep in mind that for every direction of travel, for every direction of the spatial component of your query that you ask for, and for every date range that you ask for, you've got a different tab. So this default tab that we opened here is, the weekend or 2 weekends prior to the incident, and it's eastbound. And then the next one over is the weekend before, eastbound, the weekend of eastbound, and the weekend after. And then we've got the westbound performance summary reports, okay? What's great about performance summaries, again, it just rolls the data up for you and gives you a nice, nice number that you can use for specifically generating reports like this. So I kind of looked across all of the weekends that there was not construction activity and looked at the travel time. So this is my total travel time for all the days that work zone was in effect. So that's 8.8 there. There's another 8.5 the weekend after, 8.5. Yet on the weekend of, notice travel time was a couple minutes higher. Okay, that trend was generally the same for westbound traffic. So going back to our report, that increase in travel time was just me taking kind of the average of the non-work zone weekends and the work zone weekend, doing the difference and what that percent difference is. And that's where that number 19% came in. All right. Moving on to the next two data metrics. I'm wondering, you know what, I'm going to hold on any Q&A if that is developing. John, I know you're paying attention to that, but I'm going to get through this and then pause because there's still a little bit more work to do here. So these next two metrics and infographics, if you will, that speak to vehicle hours of delay, as well as the quantitative dollar impact that this work zone has had and or a crash, if that's what you wanted to generate your after action report on. This is telling the story of the impact from a dollar perspective and vehicle hours delay during that weekend. Well, how am I deriving these numbers? Dollar values is impact. One way to think about this is the user delay cost. And wow, believe it or not, we actually have a user delay cost tool in Probe Data Analytics that helps us quantify specifically the impact in terms of vehicle hours of delay and or dollar impact for any series of roads for any period of time. All right, again, a couple of different spatial parameters and temporal parameters that go into our query. This is the setup, same road segments, because that's, that's focus. That's the focus of attention here in terms of impact. Those road segments, the period of time. Notice that the temporal input for performing my query doesn't give me an option to add a bunch of dates. So what you have to do if you want to compare and contrast and do the percent difference is you have to run your analysis for the weekend of your user delay cost analysis for the weekend of the event. Don't forget to put in, your state DOT specific variables for passenger vehicle delay and commercial vehicle delay. I just took the defaults for demonstration purposes. So you run that once for the actual weekend of the event, which is this one. Then you go back and just change those variables or change the temporal aspects. In my case, I only ran it for the weekend before to get my dollar cost differences. So here's the deal with the user delay cost tool. By default, it's giving you dollar values. But if you look at this display dropdown, you have access to vehicle hours delay. Oh, wow. Now that's giving me vehicle hours of delay. And I could also do person hours delay, here. Anything delay related, vehicle miles traveled, blah, 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 blah. That's a technical term, by the way. So total cost for my metrics that I input into my executive report, I use both vehicle hours of delay and dollar cost. So let's look at that very carefully. When looking at total costs for the weekend prior to, it was, those 4 days, yeah, there's some congestion. You could see it here on sort of typical PNP congestion, $136,500. But on the weekend of the closure, that went way up to 430,000. And then when comparing vehicle hours of delay, we went from 12.2 thousand hours in the weekend for the weekend of, as compared to vehicle hours of delay, as compared to normally just 3,800 hours delay. So again, those metrics, they tell a slightly different story. I think some executive leadership like to see dollar values. I was talking to our buddy Matt Glasser the other day. They ran some analysis to show the impact that the results of a project had. And so it was, these numbers were improved from a vehicle hours of delay and user delay cost dollar value perspective. And it was kind of a fun thing that they do in Georgia DOT, which was, hey, the savings could buy every person on the road 3 extra lattes at Starbucks for the month. So there's some kind of creative things that you can do with these metrics and the information products, depending on who your audience is, right? If it's executive leadership, they want to be to the point. But if it's a, public information campaign through your public information office, then those are the sorts of fun things, fun facts that you can add to that. So both vehicle hours delay, user delay costs, and dollar perspective was generated through UDC. Now then, if you remember this original template that I downloaded and started to populate myself, really it on this left side of the report had additional images that were captured by media or authorities for the scene of the incident. In my case, I wanted to change it up a bit because number one, I wanted to showcase one of the new tools from the CATT Lab, the causes of congestion graphs tool, but also it allowed the results, provided a little bit more insight to perhaps why we may have had some issues outside the ordinary for that closure. We're going to expect delay. We're going to expect congestion and overflow on the arterial streets when you're closing down a major interstate. But the findings here I thought were super interesting. So this output on the left, this little infographic here and here is just a screen grab from the new causes of congestion graphs tool. Now what you'll find, this left one represents causes of congestion for the weekend prior to the I-84 closure, and then the weekend of. Some really kind of alarming statistics here, one of them being the number of incidents. Like, look at that big increase from 3% to 43%. Now, I would have expected that the work zone value would naturally increase, and it did. For the weekend of, it's 27% as compared to normal for those series of I-84 that I selected. But this was something of real interest to me. All right, so where am I going to find cause of congestion graphs tool? For those RITIS users who are enterprise in nature, meaning you're contributing your crash data, your work zone data to us, you have access to this tool called Causes of Congestion Graphs tool. Maybe something for those of you who are just probe data analytics users, and maybe just NPM RDS analytics users, kind of consider in terms of value proposition of engaging with CATT Lab for broader capabilities and broader sets of analytics. So the setup for Causes of Congestion Graphs tools, similar to other tools, you define your spatial parameters, it's the same road segments, the date ranges, time periods to analyze, and the output looks like this. It breaks down. Right? We know there's congestion, but it breaks down for the weekend before and the weekend after. It breaks down the congestion by what are the contributing factors to that congestion. And again, I thought this was super interesting, right? That there was a significant increase in the number of incidents. All right, this is something to follow up on from an operational perspective. Was there not enough clear signage? Did we have enough resources, safety service patrols to clear and move disabled vehicles or whatever off the road during that weekend? Because as compared to the weekend prior, big difference. So this is a great way to, and then, in terms of the information, the content, the metrics that went into my report, see the legend up here in the right-hand corner for each one of these? I just took a screen grab and I integrated it into here. But it kind of, I thought it was pretty compelling and insightful in terms of maybe from an after action perspective internally, maybe there's some things that we could have done a little bit different in terms of managing traditional management of incidents, crashes, as it relates to road closures for that time period. So we are at almost 2:05. We've got about 10 minutes left in our session today. I am going to move back to my slide deck, pause for a minute. And John, are there super compelling questions that you feel like should be addressed at this point?
There's no open questions right at the moment, Rick.
Oh man, that must mean I'm doing a great job at communicating.
I do believe so. But let me just say one thing while we have a minute. You were showing some things like hyperlinking the trend map and using that, which is a great tool, by the way, if you want to show an animated series of time changes and volume changes on a roadway or a network. So for example, if you had this closure and it was really impacting the regional roadway network, you could see that, and then you could make some decisions or judgments about, hey, is our alternative route plan working? Was it the right one? Did we miss some things? So it's a great tool to do that and evaluate in an after action way how your alternate route plan was working. And you can also see things like, there's, as Rick pointed out, increase in incidents. So you can actually see those pop up as the day progresses and maybe get an idea of where those are happening and make an evaluation of that too.
Yeah. Thank you, John. All right. Eastern Transportation Coalition will share my slide deck as a PDF resource on their website. I think, Esther, at the beginning of the workshop, you shared that URL with everyone already. But what you'll find is that in my slide deck, I included what's to be expected and what's to come, and some of the additional after action report templates that will be made available to you once we roll out and deploy that new series or suite of resources for you. So I'm just going to kind of walk through a couple of these so you can see that, you know, some of the different variations and after action reports that will be available to you. All of them are slightly different in terms of the layout, their incorporation of different data visualizations from Pro Data Analytics. This is the one that we use today, or that I use to customize my own after action report. But yeah, some really, really nice examples of report templates that we make available to you to download and use at your disposal within the next week or so. So with that, we're gonna wrap up. We're gonna take a moment to ask a couple of more polling questions, and then open it up to the community, see if you have any specific questions that we can help you with. So with that, next polling question, second to last year, please give CATT Lab a score of 1 to 3 for the value of providing this workshop as a resource for your agency. Neutral, moderately valuable, or extremely valuable. This is a reflection on me. I'm hoping this is at least moderately valuable. Esther?
We're gonna give people a few more seconds.
All righty.
All right, we're going to close this poll in 3, 2, 1.
And our results. Cool. All right. Well, thank you. We are always happy to hear that this is these workshops and sessions are of good value to you within the user community. Close that. Go to the last poll for the day. John had mentioned this. It is set up. You know, we constantly are seeking feedback from the user community, whether it's building out additional functionality within the RITIS platform and some of our tools, but also in the context of these resources, the report templates resources. So if there's some specific performance measures or elements that you'd like us to tweak in terms of incorporation into maybe other additional after action report templates or not, please take some time and fill this out. John, do you have any additional comments on this? You're behind the scenes on all of these report templates. Nothing to add, John?
It looks like John is responding to a question that's in the Q&A box.
Thank you, John.
Rick, this is Denise. Is there an email or a contact person, if somebody is trying to work through one of these, that they can actually reach out to via email? Is that you, or is that?
Yeah, I think I have my contact info on the last slide, maybe not, but Esther, would you mind throwing my email address into the chat for everybody? It's rayers@umd.edu. You'd come to me first, and we'll take it from there. Thank you, Denise.
One more thing while you're waiting, I think part of the reasons that we're holding these workshops is from feedback that we've gotten through our strategic planning sessions from our members, particularly those that are involved in the data tool program. So If there are any other types of workshops that you'd like to be covered, not just this is an after action review template, but please feel free to send those to Rick or put those in the chat box, because I know that when we do our planning and we're looking for workshop topics, we always go to the well, as I call it, for what the members are asking us what they want to do.
Great. All right, Esther, you want to close that one up?
It looks like people are still answering, but
Okay. We have a few more moments. We've got time, so. Yep. Well, thank you again, Joanna, Esther, Denise, for all the logistics support and support in general for this workshop. Looks like it's well received.
all right, I'm going to close this poll in 3, 2, 1.
All right. Again, in the summary PDF version of my slide deck, there's going to be a bunch of resource links for you. Also, always like to have help and resources, and quick links to those are available at the end of my deck. So this is the report templates URL. Maybe you can take a screenshot of this yourself if you want. Tool catalog, list of all the tools from the CATT Lab and within the RITIS platform. We have a number of professional tutorials that help walk you through some, but not all of our tools. And that's constantly building resource and catalog for our user community. The Eastern Transportation Coalition's website, there's a link here. I should put the URL in there, but in there, there'll be access to the recording from today, a PDF of presentation, and then a summary of Q&A discussion. And then, as always, if you ever have issues with any of the RITIS tools, you believe it's a bug or you can't quite get it working the way you expect it to, or the results aren't what you expect, we do have a full-time professional support team. You can access them at support@ritis.org. Again, if you have any questions, you've already got my email address with regard to help with some of the templates, report templates, but in context of the broader team, here's some contacts for you. Screen grab that if you'd like. And yes, I did incorporate my email address at the end here. So thank you all very much for an hour and 15 minutes of your time today. We always appreciate the opportunity to present and share insights and how to leverage RITIS, the platform, and our tools, and some of these great resources. Another thanks to John for your work and contributions to today's workshop, and everybody at the Eastern Transportation Coalition and our user community. You've been fabulous. Thank you very much. And John,
Hey, Rick,
is there some time to cover that last question?
yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, in the causes of congestion graphics, is TMC segments the only option?
Yes, it is. It is because the causes of congestion graphs, the underlying business logic to that tool is national in nature. We wanted a consistent and uniform approach to doing the analysis, and TMC segments was the choice from a design architecture perspective. Good question. Any other questions?
That's it.
All right. Well, thank you all. Joanna, you going to adjourn us?
I would love to do so. Thank you again, Rick and John, for this wonderful workshop. And all of you should be on the lookout for an email with links to the information that Rick went over today.